It has been many years, but this city will never be safe. Not whilst he is still out there.
We'll show them pointy ears! We'll show them all! He's immensity! He's enormously as we can!
Please just warm it up!
A storm comes to Ulthuan. It is my duty, our duty, to endure.
It's time we give the pointy heads a proper fight!
Stand with me! For as long as I still live. For Ivress will never fall!
Hello everybody, welcome to the CA live stream. I'm Luke Johnson, lead recruitment resourcer at Creative Assembly. With me we have Carl, say hello.
Hi, I'm Carl.
And we have Chloe.
Hi, I'm Chloe.
Cool. So Carl, can you explain who you are and a little bit about what you do at CA?
So I'm the lead cinematic artist for Three Kingdom and Warhammer trailers. What that means is effectively a director, cinematographer kind of role. There's a lot of things within a cinematic artist role, but we can get into that later.
Cool. And Chloe?
Yeah, I'm a senior cinematic animator at CA. I've been here for 6 years. And I've been working on DLC trailers for Warhammer 2 with Carl and 3K DLC trailers as well.
Cool. So today hopefully we're here to talk about cinematics. So how the guys who actually have talent are able to put together the in-game trailer cinematics for us. We'll go through the pipeline and the layout and everything involved, but also I think we're here as well to hopefully inform you a little bit about the skills that are required to do that, so that if you are looking to become a cinematic artist, it's something that we can hopefully advise you on and give you some information on that. But also we're inviting you to ask questions that you'd like to get answered, anything regarding cinematics, so that we can hopefully be as much use to you all as well. So feel free to start adding the questions in, and we will make sure we get around to those. So I'll start off with a really broad one and I'll start with Carl, because you both do different roles. So I'll start with you, Carl. If you can tell me a little bit about the main sorts of skills that you think make up a cinematic artist and what you need to do.
Well, the cinematic artist at CA will be responsible for directing, writing, shot creation, will handle lighting, filling out shots for the shot composition. There's quite a broad range of skills that one artist may be using, but depending on what skill level you're at will depend on sort of where you sit. So as a lead, you're kind of directing all of it, but a trainee role may only be focused a lot on the lighting aspect for cinematics. But it's not enough to just be able to light a shot or just have cameras.
Yeah.
What we want to see is that understanding and passion for storytelling. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to create this engaging experience.
Cool. And for you, Chloe?
Well, for me, it's way more restricted in terms of what we're doing in terms of animation, because it's just motion targeted. So I don't touch cameras because I'm not a fan of animating cameras, and Carl does it way better than me. So usually the camera animation is made by cinematic artists, and the animators are just focused on motion capture creation, so shooting it, manipulating it, and then creating hanky animation, compelling animation that goes to serve the story.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So with the trailers, and Chloe, come on with you then. So are you using in-game footage to do this? Are you creating completely new footage, and sort of what's the process there for you for doing those animations?
So basically, we really want people to see what's in the game.
Yeah.
So we will be making sure that we use as much as what's in the game as possible. So anything that shows battle, attacks, death, and all will be grabbed from in-game assets and in-game animations, and then will be tweaked to work better in the camera, of course, because sometimes the motion is too big for the camera, so we need to reduce it. And then anything that's story dependent and that needs emotion and delivery of lines and lip sync, etc., then that's going to be made by us on our side, recording mocap for our needs, depending on the script that the cinematic artist comes up with.
Cool. And you get to be in the mocap studio and do this as well?
Yes, we get to goof around in the mocap studio because it's 10-minute walks from the office. So nowadays we can't reuse it because of the circumstance and the situation. But yeah, we do usually walk 10 minutes, go to the mocap studio, get the suit on, the markers and all, just play around.
Cool.
Acting is not always
some of our trailers. Some of our trailers will be like 80 to 90% just pure in-game animations. And then we'll have some where there is quite a lot of bespoke involved. Like you take Warden and Paunch, for example, a lot of that was just showing the battle engine doing its thing. We've actually got a little clip that we can show you now, which sort of shows you our very early works in progress, where we will film ourselves with a camera doing actions that we'll have to make bespoke for these trailers, and you'll be able to see that with the final result as well.
But this city will never be safe. Not whilst he is still out there.
Please just warm it up!
A storm comes.
All sons are born in the shadow of their fathers. But the day will always come
when they must stand alone
and are faced with a choice. Do they follow the path put before them?
or take a different road.
Only power yields victory. Only strength can rule.
She's just an outlaw.
So one of the first questions we've actually received is actually where we're going to go next in this. So in terms of when you're going to go and get a trailer going, can I ask, Conclave, so what's the first step in the process? How do you come up with the idea, and what's the process of them following that through?
Well, we'll first be approached by the brand team because they'll want to show certain parts of the game at certain times of the year. So we'll receive a brief. We'll get to find out who these characters are, what the time period is. Then a lot of it is it's on us to research these characters and find out as much as we can to really immerse ourselves in that world and what their motivations are. Ideas can really just come from anywhere. Sometimes it just jumps out at you. Like with Warden and Paunch, we had units that were being made where almost all of them were like these crazy, like wacky racers cars, and you have orcs. So straight away, this has got to be Mad Max, you know. But that in itself doesn't make the trailer. Where the trailer really came through was then seeing the rivalry between Eltharion and Grom. You had this classic grudge match, so we'll develop it from there. Yeah, hope that answers that really.
Okay, cool. And Chloe, are you involved in that stage straight away as well?
I'm aware of that stage. So Carl usually tells me the story. I'm aware of the brief. I can start thinking of, okay, usually they pick a main character at that point, or main characters. So for Grom and Eltharion, I could have a look at them. So for example, for rigging needs, so in terms of skeleton and how they're going to move, etc., then I can start assessing what I'm going to need from the tech artists on my team to provide me. So for Grom, extra belly motion controllers, and for Eltharion, an amazing and floaty cape and skirts, for example. So these are things that I can be involved at that point. And then Carl will write the script, and then that's where I come in with the amount of time I'm allowed to spend in terms of animation, and I can crush his heart and be like, nope, it's too much, it's too expensive.
It's iterative. It's an iterative process.
Yes,
so
certainly.
Yeah.
I'll ask for the moon, but then really what we need is down here what we'll actually
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that then, in terms of sort of, because I think the next interesting thing is probably sort of time scales. So in terms of sort of, generally, not obviously, sometimes things will happen quickly and sometimes things happen, sort of what sort of general time frames are you looking at from receiving a brief to then having to deliver?
It depends on the size of the asset. So if it's a short trailer and something that needs to be quite condensed, then the time we'll have to think about it and then make it will be shorter, of course. And then something that involves more character delivery, etc., and a bigger story, then that will take more time.
Yeah, we'll tend to spend probably sometimes a week, maybe 2 or 3 weeks in pre-production.
Yeah.
Which is where we're doing the research. We're coming up with different concepts and getting those approved, because obviously it's not just a case of handing us the brief and then we get to run off and tell our little story.
Yeah, it's fun, yeah.
And then tell them you've definitely met the brief.
Yeah, so a lot of what we do have to then work directly with the designers for these characters. We have to work with the brand team, because they'll have a marketing campaign. They'll want to dress things a certain way, present it a certain way. And we also work with Games Workshop when it comes to Warhammer, because it's their IP. They know their characters better than anyone.
Cool. So with that collaborative process, sort of how many is that? Quite a number of people that are involved, and do they all have their say, or is this led by you, Carl, or you, Chloe, with what you want as well?
Well, so the ideas really can come from anywhere. What it tends to be for cinematic artists, and like when you're the principal on it, which is the director, writer. I'll boil everything down. I'll take it all in. You're trying to build a world here, and you're trying to immerse yourself. So I'll take it all in and then boil it down to some key themes and premises that anyone can understand. Even if you don't know a thing about Warhammer, you know what a grudge match is. Yeah.
Yes.
So I will be developing that approach, but through the perspectives of the characters and telling it through those characters.
Yeah.
And then as you're going through that and working through that, you'll be storyboarding it, creating animatics, and throughout that process, we're having lots of different people coming in and looking at and making sure that things are still within the characters.
Yes,
we're not straying off too far.
Cool. I think with the timescale stuff, one of the next questions actually that's probably quite good is obviously there's a compliment in there saying they love our work, so I'm sure the guys. Yeah, so thank you very much. Is it hard to say when something's done, and is there the desire to constantly want to be able to tweak and edit it?
So it's hard to call something done, although we've got someone on the team that's called a producer, and the producer will make sure that he is like reminding us that the deadline is coming and that we need to meet the deadline, because we get given a deadline, we get given budget and mandates that we can work on an asset. So there's only so much time we can spend on it. So yeah, nobody asked me to stay at the studio to work more on my shots, and I like my life out of the office not to do that either. So there's just a point where you just do the work to the best of your ability, and then you just hand it over and finish it.
So is it easier for you guys for someone else to tell you when it's done, or because you're artists, obviously? So is it easier for someone else to tell you when it's done, or is that something that actually is quite a good quality, you think, from people to be able to recognise when it's as good as it's going to be, or it is the finished article?
It's to me, in terms of animation, I look at my deadline and I'll make sure that I reach a certain quality level by that deadline. So I actually put myself different levels of quality during the production. So early in production, I'll make sure to work up everything to a certain level of polish, and then I'll go to another level. So I'll try and make sure that the quality of the asset is maintained throughout.
Okay.
Yeah, because we are developing these trailers during the production of the game, we do come across instances where there'll be an assumption on us that something is going to come through, or halfway through development, a mechanic has changed in the game. Because so we have to keep up with the designers and their directions. So sometimes, like, enough is enough is because you need to prepare for those instances when you do have to make those changes.
Yeah.
And we're quite lucky at CA in that our cinematic team is all internal. So we're not going to external agencies. That means that we all get a chance to work on all these different Total War titles. You know, we're moving around a lot, so timekeeping is vital.
Certainly, and I know obviously you've got the producers that will be there to help you keep on track. So that's certainly certainly super useful. An interesting question as well, which is coming, which I think again we can go into quickly now because it's about the process again. So for you, Carl, this is probably more directed at you, but Chloe, feel free to chip in. How important is the process of choosing the music for the story, and does the music or the story come first? How does that work for you?
Music is 70% of the experience. It's like our motive guideline. It's just, in itself, it's a storyteller. If you've got good music, you can have no narration whatsoever, because the music will tell you how to feel, and it will pull you along and it will help you through it. When we're doing our music, obviously everyone wants to license music and just say that's what we're going to get. Obviously, licensed music can be very expensive, but also there is something special about writing your own music. We'll always use a temp track, so something that has inspired us, and I'll listen to music throughout the process. So writing, even just conceptualize, just come up with a concept for what we're doing. Huge playlists of just different tracks that for me feel like they communicate the right tone.
Okay.
You know?
And I suppose they can help with you coming up with different ideas or help pushing you along in that respect as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. And for you, Chloe, does music play a role for you yourself?
Well, I do take part in the creation of the asset and of building emotion and building tension and action, etc. So yeah, the music really helps because it brings beats in the piece as well. So it's not necessarily to do exactly with like small motion and details in animation, but it's definitely part of the rhythm of the piece. So the animation is there to serve the piece and the asset. So, well, I do like when Carl comes up with a temp track on a storyboard, and then 2 days after he comes up with a different temp track, and I'm like, whoa, cool, okay, that's cool, you know, and we just go back and forth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's really good fun, and it fuels the creative aspect of it for me too in terms of anim. So yeah.
Cool. And then following along from that, we've got another question, which I think sort of is also relevant to this, which is, do you set out to make trailers similar to movies? And for example, the Mad Max Warden Paunch, does that happen more naturally, or is there a specific intent with that?
So there are editing styles that will say a lot about it. And I can tell you straight away, the approach I had to Three Kingdoms and to Warhammer was very different. With Warhammer, it's a lot more poppy. We're thinking more blockbuster, especially with Warden and Paunch. We're heavily inspired by Mad Max, thinking, okay, if we're going to do this, let's also dress this like a Hollywood trailer. You can look at movie trailers, and there are kind of trying to think of a good example in particular, but you see people who have broken down movie trailers, and then they said, all right, here's say the Harry Potter trailer done in a Mad Max style, and here's the Avengers trailer done in a Blair Witch Project style. Yeah, so people have already been able to dissect that certain movies have like these sort of trends in how
Yeah.
they've edited together, and it does create a tone, or like
Yes.
the way it carries you through. Yeah. So it's very active choice that we make is what sort of style are we going for here.
Cool. So from that perspective as well, does that mean that, being of a certain time, does that mean that, certain new movies, new trailers, new things that are coming out, is that influencing you as you're doing these trailers, or are all your references sort of based exempt from pop culture, if you like?
Yeah, a lot of it is in part with the game. So with Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I was already going for a sort of deeper, more romantic approach to it. But then there is the overall approach to how you market a product.
Yes.
You'll look at some of the old commercials, and it's very much like, here's this Star Wars coffee mug, here's exactly how you use it, here's here its features, it has a handle, it'll just tell you what you're getting.
Yeah.
Now what you'll see is the commercial will be about how it makes you feel. It will try to create a connection and a bond with that product, as opposed to just listing off its features.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
things
what's
are
more
always
fun for me
evolving.
as well.
Mm.
Trying to get emotions in this coffee mug is better than just presenting it dry and cold.
That should be one of our tests for a trainee, is sell me your coffee mug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that could be something.
And obviously we'll go on from then in terms of, because I think naturally you've mentioned that. So obviously, when we have the trainee roles, they come up, there's, we have trainee roles each year, and often people will ask us, what should a trailer, what should I be putting in a show reel to impress you? Is there certain skills that they need to have in there? Do they have to have used certain software? Does it have to be put into a game engine? All these sorts of things. Or is there other more overarching things which for you are the most important and go above and beyond those other elements?
Well, as Carla said earlier, we want to see people that are eager to tell stories. So if that means creating a piece all in Maya, using Maya lights, but then you just come up with framings and then rhythm and a layout that's nice, then that's going to speak to us in terms of the storytelling. If you know how to put some animations in an engine, like Unreal, for example, like this is definitely valuable, because we do put stuff in game and in engine for our trailers. Our tools are all in-house, and we use the Total War engine to make our trailers, but this is still valuable experience. And then in terms of animation, which is more centered onto my side of the department, it's being able to create emotion, body mechanics, and just being able to sell an actual piece of acting, just so, you can translate an emotion.
Yes.
So that's what we need to compile just to make an entire piece together. But Carl, maybe you can say a bit more. But
before I was a cinematic artist, I was a QA tester / animator for Alien Isolation. And whilst I was doing that, I was trying to build up that reel to show that, hey, I can tell stories. I primarily did it just to work on my animation skills, but I used some software called Source Filmmaker, which is free to use. Anyone can get it. I'm sure a lot of people here probably already heard of it by now. Great bit of kit, and it's pretty close to what our tool set would be. We're not expecting people to have our tool set, obviously, but like something like Source Filmmaker or Unreal Sequencer.
Yep.
There's a lot of these game engines now have built-in cinematic tools that let you tell these stories, and it really depends on what level you're expecting to join us at. So a lead, if you're going for a lead role, we'd obviously expect you to be able to
do absolutely everything.
Demonstrate pretty much everything. Yeah. But a trainee, as Chloe has said, you might put something together using those tools. So, okay, we understand that you know how to use 3D software. That's good. But your framing might not be the best, but then you've got really good lighting, or like we can see that there is a narrative here, and you're very like it's actually quite strong, and you've hooked me there. And we'll always work with you to develop everything else.
So is it good then from that perspective? I'll sort of put you on the spot a bit then, Carl. Is it good if someone was to send through not just the trailer, but maybe the storyboard or the scripting that they've done alongside it, so you can see those other skills that aren't necessarily instantly visible in the trailer?
Yeah, that's always really interesting to see, because it shows us your thought process as well. And like for storyboarding, for example, I mean, every now and then I do try and storyboard, but it's mostly stick figures. I'm not the best artist. I'll turn to Chloe and say, Chloe, you're wonderful. Your art is great. Please help me.
Well, I mean, even with stick figures, it's a very good process to do storyboard and sketch out ideas. So you get the idea across way faster if you just draw a little rectangle and two stick figures facing each other on a page. Then the time it would take you to get to do, like, cameras and then a light and then a character in an engine. So it's a really good part of the process, and we're curious to see what people can do in that matter.
Yeah,
you'll use whatever's on hand to tell that story.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's important as well, so that people who are listening as well know that obviously when we are trainees, when we're judging, when we're looking at people for specifically a cinematic artist, it doesn't mean we're breaking down each, what is your art skills for storyboarding. Like that's not what's being analysed at that finite level. It's more do you have the basic skills for us to be able to help develop you through, isn't it? Very much, do you have the passion, the interest, which is why then I'll also ask, is it important for you that it either contains, feels, or they have an interest in Total War from both of your perspective?
I mean, if you are to work at a place that does a kind of game, might as well be interested in it.
Yeah.
I wasn't the biggest Total War player, but I played it and I saw the hundreds of animations in there, and like everything was worked up, and I was like, that's really a cool game animation wise for me. So I was really driven towards it, and then I heard good things about the studio as well, which is good thing. So one of my friends worked there and was like, you know what, you like the animes and the studio's cool, so come and join us.
If you play the game, it's obviously going to be
beneficial
to your benefit.
Of course,
yeah,
of course.
Of
course.
But in terms of cinematics as well, if you're going to be working on history and you're trying to take a part of history that a lot of people do care about, and they know a lot about it, like say take China and the Three Kingdoms period, you have to have that kind of character where you'll delve into the history and really understand that culture, really understand those
authentic,
people.
Doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Like authenticity is so important, because if you're just going in and just creating shots and people just running at each other, killing each other, you're not really understanding why people care about that particular time period, or why, like Warhammer. There is more to it than just orcs and elves killing each other.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is that. Don't get me wrong.
Cool. We've got I think a sort of, and I'll carry on because we've had a interesting question. Which is, would a breakdown reel help complement a show reel then, if they were to send that through? Is that something that would be really beneficial, do you think?
I think it would be beneficial, because you've seen it at the start of the stream. We've shown you some breakdown aspects of our work. So you can't do storyboard, that's fine, just film yourself, or put your phone in a corner, just create your shots and stuff, and then you're going to create your assets and your characters, your props, and then you're going to film them. But then we can see what your thought process is. Yeah. So showing us the script and then showing us some footage of you goofing around in your living room. I mean, as long as it serves your process and
it's
your
relevant.
Creative, exactly. as long as it's relevant.
Yes,
please.
So what we didn't show you in those clips were sections where we have also put together part of the animatic. So some of it you'll use whatever you need to use in order to communicate what the intent of that story is and those scenes. So sometimes we're just taking clips from various films that inspire us, and we'll use that because, we're not going to one-for-one recreate. I mean, sometimes we do one-for-one recreate. That's like a bit of fun, like Predator or something, right? Mm-hmm. But often it's what that scene is doing and how it serves. Like, I need that piece from that film because that shot inspires me in this way, and I really want to use that. So you just take it and just put it in your animatic. We're not expecting that to be the final product, but what it is all of it together is communicating your intent.
Certainly. Cool. A question which is, I think, quite interesting as well is, so someone's wondered, when you're animating trailers, animating the trailers the same, who do the actual in-game unit animations, and are those different positions to yours?
Yeah, they are different. So we've got 2 different teams. Well, there's multiple teams. There's the console team, they've got their own animation team.
Yeah.
Then there's the Total War team that's got the in-game team that's going to be focused on everything that's in the game. So that's gameplay related. And then the cinematics animation team, which is dedicated on cutscene and trailer creations. So those are 2 different teams. But as I said earlier, we want to make sure that the game is represented as much as possible in the trailer, because we want people to see the trailer, get excited about like a crab eating someone, and then when they get the game, the crab is actually doing this in the game.
Yeah.
So it's 2 different teams, it's 2 different roles, but I do steal their animes to use them in the trailer.
Yeah, you're just editing the animation we have to for the purpose of the storytelling and everything that we've talked through.
And for the camera, and just for it to look nice and extra nice in the camera.
Yes.
You tend to because obviously there's quite a few animators. But
Yes.
You tend to get the animators take over a certain unit, don't they? So there may be one animator who's done all the crab stuff, because then it all feels consistent.
Yeah.
Different animators will have different styles, and so naturally, if we're going to show that same crab, we're not going to want to just completely reanimate it. We're going to want to keep that consistency there. We'll use the game animations.
Yeah.
So alongside that then is how many custom assets do you generally created for a cinematic trailer, like in the Vampire Coast trailer, and stuff like shovels, torches, treasure chests, lizard trinkets, etc. They've suddenly asked all of those as well. So yeah, cool.
Well, in terms,
it depends.
Go ahead, Sean. I'll start.
Well, some trailers it's quite straightforward because everything is outdoors. We're in some jungle. So what Total War has a lot of is lots of landscape, lots of jungles, lots of rocks and mountains and rivers, you know. So we haven't got to create anything. But we do have a technical team at Cinematics that will handle those little bespoke requirements. So sometimes it's like, you know what, in order to tell this story, I really need like a toolbox. It's like, do we really need that toolbox? Yeah, we do. Okay. So we'll have to factor that into our budget. For the overall trailer, because you can't expect this game on this massive scale to be doing like for like interior environments, for example. I know that was a question that I saw earlier. Can't remember who asked it. Sorry, but they asked about the Vampire Coast trailer, and one of the original concept was a tavern inside, and huge factor to consider there is that's an entire internal environment we'd have to build from scratch. Because the game doesn't have you going inside taverns.
No, it could be an idea though. Who knows?
I mean, it's like everything is up, you know, to be considered. That's one of the great things about telling stories in a game world and 3D world. Is there's really not much limitation there, but we do have to factor in the cost to benefit. Do we really need to have this in a tavern? Does that guy really need to have that wrench? Could we just maybe just not have a tool in his hand, then we haven't got to make that tool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all like down to the needs of the trailer. We usually pick one main character or 2 main characters. Lately we've been improving our tech, so we've been able to have more than 2 main characters, but back on Vampire Coast there was only Harkon, and Harkon was appraised from his in-game model, so the textures were appraised, more definition into them. He had a proper facial skeleton, just so we could put expressions and make him talk. We made him a shovel prop that wasn't present in the game because Harkon doesn't walk around with a shovel. But so this is what we had to do. We had to get an environment artist to dig a hole into the map for him to look like he's digging into the sand, and all those things. Just get a chest with coins and a trinket to be made. So those are all things that we take into account. If everybody's on board with the script and the idea and it's following the brief and Brand is happy, and then we get the budget assigned to it, and then the producers are like, okay, you can do it, and then we can do it.
It's part of pre-production, right? So the first thing we're doing is writing out our ideas and having a great time writing it up. But it's a lot easier to write Harkon digs with a shovel in his hand. So now we go back and look at that and say, we need to make a shovel.
and then that's then the producer's job to work out if there's enough time to make that shovel and how to
shovel.
And then there's going to be
something else. Right.
Yeah, and then the people in charge of the budget will be able to say, yeah, well, okay, you can have this amount of budget to make your shovel.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it might not happen, and then might be, well, sorry, but you're gonna have to do something else. So maybe he would have dug with his hands. That would have been not as good as the shovel, for sure.
Cool. Next question that follows along from that, which I think is also relevant, is loads of the trailers feature massive scale battles. How are these orchestrated? Is it a single person scripting all the actors? Is it a spectator filming 2 in-game players and given some direction? How do you do that?
Well, one of the great things of working CA is it's our game. So we have ways of making it behave. We control both teams. So we can disable the AI, so every single unit is under our control. In most cases, we will just play the game. We'll have a huge roster of units, we'll get them fighting each other. Sometimes we'll want the camera to get really close to things, though, and we need things to be very specific, especially in shot.
Yeah.
If we need a certain animation to play at exactly the right moment, we have another tool set which allows us to load up any model, load up an animation, apply it to it, and then create like a group of those. So say like an artillery piece firing projectiles or something. And then essentially what we're doing is we're playing a replay of the game. So what you're seeing is the game, it's just a replay. But then our tools are like an overlay on top of that, where we can not superimpose, but we can like put in bespoke characters and animations on top of the replay.
Yeah.
So usually things that are close to the camera, they are using in-game animations and in-game models, but they're not using gameplay logic time. They're not run through the replay. They are using our tools so that we can control exactly what they need to be doing.
Yeah. So when we work together and Carl has created a shot and then I've got this character, I don't know, running through the frame, and I want to see it in game because I don't want Carl to have to show me, so I want to open the game myself. So I'm like, Carl, hi, which replay am I meant to load? Have you shared it on the network? So then I grab the replay and then I open it, and then the replay loads, and it's just this battle, loading screen where you just get like these 2 lords, and they're just hidden far away on the map, like in the forest or whatever. And then my character is there, running and doing its thing because it's a different one, which is created with the different tool set, but imported in game. So I've got, I don't know, like this massive battle thing. That's actually just 2 generals standing, not doing anything, hidden on the map, and then me just looking at my thing. So, there's loads of different things, but you get AI for big scale battle, and then when you go up close, usually we use different tools.
So does it help if you're a competent player of the game to get this footage?
I mean, I did some training with the cinematic guys last year, and they actually showed me and invited me to create my own little cutscene thing just as a training purpose, and I had to play the game, and I was like, oh my god, they're not doing what I want. That was driving me insane. I had to play my thing. It was just like two or three chunks of units, just like a super basic thing, but they were not doing what I wanted them to do. So I had to replay it multiple times. And then I had to do my separate character with this different scene and stuff, put it in, and God, like those guys were clashing in the background and doing nonsense. I was like, ugh. Like,
the power of editing does let you only show exactly what you need to show at the timings that you dictate because you're editing it. One of the hardest things I had to make were the 360 trailers we did.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the idea of that was to try and create one long shot through these battlefields. That meant that we couldn't just cut the camera to do a new shot. It had to play out through, and most of that is the game logic, but it's me having played that battle over and over and over again at like 10% speed.
Yes.
I was like, I need the gates to open at just this moment. I need these guys to fire their guns at this moment, and it took a while, but then it's only one camera I've got to worry about.
Very, very long camera.
So if the game is really unpredictable, that would make that even harder for you.
Well, that's one of the challenges we have is that we are making these trailers during game development. So a really easy example to kind of understand this problem: if the developers decide that the speed at which a unit should run changes, that means that halfway through production, we're relying on everything to be moving at a certain speed throughout our shot. Now all of that's broken and we have to start all that again.
Yeah. We had
And as much as we can control, the better.
We had one instance of a shot for Three Kingdoms in the Cao Cao trailer, and Cao Cao was in the middle of his troops and looking desperate. And every time, like, there was this guy in the replay, one of the characters, and he would pop with his flag and cover Cao Cao every time. And we're like, oh my god. Like,
Out the way!
Get out! So just replaying it, you know, remaking it, and every time we just pop in the middle and just cover Cao Cao with his flag, and it was like, oh my god, just
That
behave.
character could become their own gift, though, couldn't they? They could. You could have the fame-hungry member of the unit.
He's the one. Hey, mom, I'm on TV.
So with the models then in the trailers, a question for you guys is: did they have more complex skeletons than the actual game models, which I think we sort of touched on a little bit? Are the game models sometimes complex enough to pull off stuff like facial expressions, or is it always you're having to put these together?
So the in-game, let's just take the basic human model. So Empire guy.
Yeah.
He will have one controller on his eyebrows, so he'll be doing that with his monobrow. He'll have two eyelids, so he can do this. His eyes won't move because there's no look at stuff for it to look like. And then there'll be one jaw controller and be flappy jaw, and that's it. So Harken saying fortune favors the infamous with a flappy jaw and a monobrow would have been very hard to pull off. So no.
Yeah, like Sesame Street.
For background characters, charging characters, and screaming and stuff. This we leave it as the in-game characters, but then any main character is oppressed. Although for Three Kingdoms, the facial rig was different and upraised in game. So all the cinematics characters are actually just upraised on their model and textures, but the rig, so the facial skeleton, is exactly the same as the one in the game. So we didn't have more controllers on the face for this one.
Cool. So I'll follow on from that, which is someone's asked as well, which is is there any particular software that you would recommend for a cinematic animator that would help them in refining their skill set and becoming better for your job? Is there certain software you definitely tell them to go and have a use and play with and see?
So cinematic animation for me, so we use Maya predominantly. We use Motion Builder when we get the motion capture from the studio, just to start manipulating it, applying filters on it, and then we export it and put it in Maya. We do 3ds Max we don't use, but we're just predominantly on Maya. But we do appreciate if someone that applies has very good hand key animation skills, but has also a bit of experience dealing with mocap, because it's a very different workflow. So even though we train people, and I trained and I learned it the very rough way, but I made it through it. And it's really cool. It's a really cool tool, but it's really a plus if you do know a bit of motion capture before applying for cinematic animation, at least. Then for cinematic artists, Carl, what would be?
Yeah, what software would you recommend?
Well, I mean, software-wise, we're using the Adobe package mostly. So typically After Effects, not so much actually on our trailers, but After Effects because we handle a lot of the in-game event stuff as well. So a cinematic artist would also do some of the in-game content. Not all of it, obviously, but we do work on that. Primarily the editing we do through Premiere. You are free, of course, to use something like Sony Vegas. It's just editing software at the end of the day, but Premiere is our preferred,
Cool. I think a question which actually sort of pops up to me, which I think sort of hopefully you'll be able to answer as well, which I think everyone will be along the similar lines, which is someone's asked, can a concept artist work as a storyteller in cinematics? And I think it's probably important there to say that concept artists are their own role completely. Therefore, we would never say a concept artist is 100% going to be able to make a cinematic artist, because there's loads of other things you need to demonstrate. But that could be a good foundation for if you want to do the other things, perhaps. So Carl, from your perspective, a concept artist wants to become a storyteller in cinematics. Is that a useful skill set? Is that a good place to start? Or?
Well, the game, there is another cinematics team at Total War. They're the guys that actually create the in-game little intros you get for the
Yeah,
factions.
2.5D, yeah.
Yes, it's like 2.5D. So that uses like a lot of concept art that's then polished up, and then using After Effects and some various software to do like VFX on it and things. So, just a 2D artist has a very strong chance if they're interested in doing storytelling. There is a team at Total War where they would need those skills. Yeah.
Yes, certainly. Yeah. And I think it's important that when you see our job adverts and we will list bullet points for the skills that we're looking for. And we do try and list them all out to give you an indication of that you need to have certain strings to your bow. So if you have, so quite often if the level of the role is an entry level trainee position, if you have some of those strings and they're really good and you don't have the others, that might be enough to get a job. But ultimately, you're competing against other people. So someone who comes along who has every one of those strings, unfortunately, makes them slightly more relevant. But also, if you're going for a developer role or senior, etc., if you're lacking one of those, that might be a hindrance to you actually getting that job at all, because without that, you can't perform at that level of function we need. So it's a difficult one to answer that. But I think ultimately, we employ skills. So if you've got enough skills for us to employ, there could be a role for you at CA, but you've got to read through the job descriptions and understand. And if you're not sure, send us a question in the recruitment team. And if we're not sure, we'll ask Carl and Chloe to clarify that to us as well. But we'll basically come back with, as much helpful information as we can to help you identify whether your skills are relevant. But the easier it is for you to identify that yourself, the far more success you'll have in your job applications and those sorts of things. So
the CA isn't this like cold corporate place where you've come in as a concept artist, that's your corner, you stay there. Yes. It's a place full of artists and gamers. Yeah. So we do often get a lot of crossover where people will talk to each other, they'll help each other, they'll work with each other on different things. And just because you're working as, like say, a concept artist for the game doesn't mean that us in cinematics are going to say no to like collaborative work with the concept artist to help us with those trailers. Yeah,
and I think as well that it's if you're looking at different industries as well, we will meet concept artists who actually they're more storyboard artists and they're doing shot creation for films and TV shows, and that is a job in itself, and they earn great money and they do those things. I think it's look at what your skill set is and look at what industries use that, and then sort of place yourself within that, because especially Carl didn't start in cinematics and then go in there, and nothing has to happen immediately. You can develop these skills as you progress through your career to end up where you want to be. It doesn't have to be you have them all now, but if there's Carl started in QA, so QA is a huge learning curve at Creative Assembly as well, where it can help you develop those skills to get you into the position of where Carl is now as a lead as a cinematics team. So that's certainly useful. Someone's asked here, they're saying they've graduated with a 2-1, so congratulations, in computer arts, specialising in animation. And they've put, but how can I get a job? Can you have any advice for me? So you probably graduated with animation.
I think I did, actually. The first mistake I made when I graduated was to not apply everywhere first, because I was too picky. You can't be picky because the first step into the industry is the hardest to make. So it's just keeping your demo reel and your portfolio as concise and focused on quality as much as possible, and then applying to places like that you want to work at and that you need to make people feel like you want to work with them. If you have anything in your reel or in your portfolio that you feel like, well, I'll put it in there anyway because it fills space. If you yourself think, it's not the recruiter is gonna where you have a small cringe, the recruiter will cringe. So you need to make sure that you put yourself at the best picture of yourself, and that you apply with the best of what you can do, and not showing weaknesses, if that makes sense.
You'd certainly rather see 20 seconds of excellence than a minute of 20 seconds of good stuff and 40 seconds of bad stuff, because it taints your view of what they can achieve.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a few people recruiting. I've been lucky enough that I was part of a recruiting team to hire some of my teammates. and we had some people senior with like 10 years, 15 years experience, and they sent us a 6 minutes reel and stuff from like 10 years ago, and it's, the quality is bad, the models are ugly, the anime is like but they send us 10 minutes of what they've done because that's how much they've made. But then it gives us more things to think are not that great. We end up and we just we see all the mess stuff,
all the flaws,
and then we can't, even if there's like 2 really amazing pieces in there, we're like, yeah, but what about the 4 other stuff that's not that great? Like, is that representative of the quality of their work?
Yeah.
So it's about really focusing on showing the best of what you can do.
I mean, I've got some advice similar to that as well, because I also graduated with for animation at Bournemouth University. I couldn't get into an animator position first, but I did initially start by being quite picky and looking for animation roles. And after about a year of just playing around, trying to find something and working on my reel, I figured I just got to get into the industry. If I'm there, I can actually talk to people and then find out what I'm missing, and they can actually communicate with me and help me out. So just Sega QA for Empire Total War was my first job in the industry, and then that got me through to creative assembly, and then the rest is kind of history. Just I can actually talk to people, and then develop my skills as I go.
Yeah, and I think the important thing from my perspective is someone who works in recruitment is that when you're looking for a job, the main thing to learn is you can only ever turn down a job you've actually been offered. So if you think you're better than a position, the only way you can demonstrate that is you apply and you get offered those positions, but you're offered better ones. So but also as well, don't apply to a company and say, I'm going to apply for trainee animator, trainee cinematics, senior lighting artist, lead, art director, because we see that and we sort of go, well, we understand you've got a desire to work here, but you don't seem to understand your skill set, and it's really important you understand what skills you do have. So the relevance of what you're applying for can stand out to the managers as well. So really, it's not about just quantity; it's about pinpointing. Would you enjoy doing that? What elements are you good at doing that for? And then selling that to us. So it's really key there that you don't think about, Also as well, I would say, and I don't know why I do say this, is that just because a company has a name above the door, it doesn't mean that's a good company to work at for you, because each company fits different people. And what makes your job enjoyable is the people you work with, your leads, and the surroundings. So don't think of a studio as that is the place you have to work, because ultimately you might find out you don't enjoy working there, and the role you do enjoy is the company that you've not really considered because of what everything that comes with it fits you. So I think that's key, is just sort of look for those jobs. If you we've done this before and talked about where you can look. There's you can just Google it and you can do those sorts of things, but I find if you go on LinkedIn and start networking and engage with the companies directly, that's a really direct source of helping people, and also connecting with people who will help you with your show reel and your things, because there's some really nice people that work in the industry, and they'll always offer advice and information, and you can get directly to the sources of the hiring managers. But also there's Uki with a games map and things like this, that it's looking in the right places to find these jobs, not just typing in Google animation and seeing what jobs come up, because it's not going to show everything, and if it's not at the top of the search, you're probably not going to get there. So those are the sort of my recommendations for that as well. Carl, I'll quickly drop this in there because I was looking for a chance to do it, but it's not a question. They just wanted to tell you that they love your T-shirt.
Oh, well, I think everyone at CA.
I've got it. It's in the cupboard behind me there. It's there.
So one of the perks on the job is
I've also got.
We announce a game. A game comes out, so they give everybody T-shirts for that game, and on the back it says developer for Total War Warhammer, which is always nice to walk around town with. Although if you go to Horsham, which is where Creative Assembly is based, you probably see about 300-400 people walking around with this shirt on. So it's not so special.
Yeah.
I was
calls there.
I was once asked by someone if we were a cult because it was a cold winter's day and there was probably 300 people in CA hoodies walking around fairly close proximity. Fairly close proximity, and someone asked it whether we were a cult.
I see a hoodie there. It's there. Look at this. It's gorgeous.
Cool. Another question then, which I think is the most interesting one in terms of as well, especially if you're an artist, which is from your guys, how much freedom do you have over your trailers and over your animations?
Well, we have a lot of creative freedom in that I'll find themes that interest me. Because if you've got someone directing something and they have no real interest in it, it's not going to be special. It's not going to be fun, right? But in order to really get set off in the right direction, because what you don't want to do as an artist is get really into an idea, start working on it, then talk to people like Brand and say, look, here's my idea. I've done all this like a whole stack of concepts and paperwork that you've done. And they say, yeah, but that's got nothing to do with what we're trying to communicate. And you go, oh, okay, fine. I got to come up with something else then, right? So, so that's obviously not what you want.
Yeah. So as you get more senior then, Carl, is the ability to sell your ideas something that's also quite key, the ability to influence other people.
It's a diplomatic skill, I'd say, is knowing how to work with and coordinate with people.
Yeah.
But in terms of like creative freedom, there is a lot of, for me personally, I find there's quite a lot, but the way that I get to that, I don't just go away and say, this is what I'm doing. I'll start with broad stroke premises first and themes. Communicate. You're talking with designers, the writing team on Warhammer or whatever, Total War. You're talking with the brand team. You want to make sure that everybody has that kind of wavelength, that everyone's thinking the same, like, yeah, this is right for this product. This is right for this character. And then boil it down and you can get excited and go nuts as an artist and have loads of creative freedom there.
Yeah, I do have a lot of creative freedom as well, because we are in a relationship with Carl where we trust each other. So he comes up with the idea and the script, and then he asks me, okay, what do you think would be better in terms of action animation at that point? I'm like, okay, well, maybe this, maybe that. And then we work on it together. And then I kind of come up with ideas and with kind of animations and then ways of, creating facial expressions that are really from me. And then I can show to Carl, okay, what do you think of that? And usually, unless it goes completely away from the script, which would be weird, Carl will always say, okay, yeah, cool, I'm on board with that, keep going. And then we'll just feed each other feedback, but we'll just encourage each other to be as creative as possible. So it's really good.
A trailer will have between 1 to 3 animators and then maybe 1 to 3 artists, like cinematic artists, working on it. And that's not to include the great team that have actually created all these models and all the games. But there's a huge team that without them,
there's over 600 of us now in total at the studio, so it's quite a large number.
I mean, sometimes we get like this big monster and it's just like, it tells itself. I've only got to point a camera in its direction and it's amazing, right?
Yes.
But in terms of like how we operate as a cinematics team, whoever the principal is on that, which would typically be like myself, like a lead, will direct it. But ultimately, what we want is the artist to feel that they can be creative and explore those areas, as long as it fits the overall direction. So
everybody.
Chloe, she's feeling sad here for this and this reasons.
Yeah. No. Everybody can take ownership of a part of the piece. And that's what's the most valuable. And it ties into one of the questions that I can see about one of the favorite things about working at CA. And for me, it's all of these opportunity of being able to take ownership of what I'm doing. And so I'm servicing a script and a trailer and the needs of a director and the needs of the trailer and brand behind us asking us to do an asset that's going to help, promote the game. But at the same time, I do have so much room to express myself and take ownership and say, cool, this idea, that was me. And I said it, and then people, took it and tweaked upon it. But as an animator, I'm not the director, I'm not writing the script, but still I can still participate in, adding stuff in. So that's one of my favorite things about working at CA.
Cool. And for you, Carl? Your favourite things?
Our favourite thing working at CA.
Ice cream Wednesday.
Ice cream Wednesday. I don't have the ice creams, Chloe.
No, I don't have ice cream.
You don't get this figure by eating lots of ice creams.
Here you go.
There's a lot of protein in those ice creams. No, my favorite thing is as Chloe said, it's the ownership as an artist. You're not just trying to create a product and off you go, and this is exactly how it has to be. There's a lot of trust given to you to explore and learn about what you're actually being asked to do.
Yeah.
So you need to work on. Really, sometimes the brief is just it's got to be Eltharin and Grum. Off you go.
Yeah.
I'll delve into it. I'll find out why do they hate each other so much, and that's fun. And I get to then play with it and learn those stories. Yeah, tell that story.
Okay, cool. I'll quickly say something as well, and then we'll go on to the last bit because it's really short about and we need to wrap up. So so yeah, from my perspective as well, I think I'm not an artist like Chloe and Carl, and I don't have any talent with regards to producing anything like that. So why I'd say I think that it's important, why I like working at CA as well, is that I want to work for a company that I think are a good company, that have good values at their heart, and I think when I joined CA, that's what I hoped it would be, and being here has fulfilled all of that, whether it's from this pandemic currently hits and the way in which everyone's treated, the charity things that suddenly kick off and spawn because there's a need for that in society, the legacy projects and everything that goes on around there. It's a really nice company, and I mean that in the most genuine way. And that when times are tough or work's hard or deadline or everyone's firing everywhere because things get crazy, etc., and things like this, right? Knowing fundamentally that your best interests are at the heart of the company and that you have those things are massively important. And I think that's one of the key things as well, that when you're looking for an employer, to know that you're working for someone that values you is super important, because it will make your job so much easier. Yeah.
I originally arrived at CA for a 1-year internship, and I liked it so much there that I'm here 6 years later. It's not just ownership. It was a trap. They lured me in with ice creams, and then they took care of me, and summer parties, and just career progression. Like who becomes a senior within 5 years? It's just like it's crazy. So yeah, as you say, Luke, the company is so good to their employees, and like it's not just to do some false advertising, because that's not what it is. It's just genuinely great. Like I feel really lucky that I'm at CA right now.
We'll also say that I think as well that it's something that we've developed and the company really works on, and it's I think that, that's why hopefully you see 3 happy people sat in front of you today talking about their jobs. So the last bit, which I think we'll do, the last question because it's super quick, if that's right, is Carl and Chloe, what are the favourite trailers you've worked on? You can be really brief if you want and quick, so we can wrap it up. But so your favourite trailer.
You're first, Carl. I need to think.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes we get asked this in interviews, actually, when people are applying. They ask us that. It really depends on the mood that you're in. Sometimes you're just feeling a bit wacky and you want to have a bit of fun. When I like the trailers, like the Green Skin trailer, working with the dynamic of Grimgore and the little goblin, it was so much fun to play with that relationship. At any moment, that big orc is going to break this little goblin's neck.
Yeah,
it
was a bit of a slog. Yeah,
it was a bit of a slog, but it was worth it.
It was worth it.
And then sometimes you're feeling a lot more melancholic and you want to be a bit more creative with your work. And so that's where probably Mandate of Heaven was quite a big one for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was a great one. For me, the Vampire Courses trailer, because it was combining 2 of my favorite aspects, which were pirates and vampires. I really liked that, and Harkin was a very charismatic character, and I worked very hard on this one, so that was good. So that was, this one, and Shadow and Blade lately. Okay. Oh, this one has a very high rank in my top trailers I've worked on, because we've polished it so much, we've worked so hard on this, and. People reacting to it. Like, I do this to generate emotion. I want people to feel something. And just to see my parents being like, ooh, at the end, or people getting excited. That's one of the best rewarding things ever. So yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the
what-
day,
what-
it's the fans, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
But
seeing the
what,
place
what,
their
what I'm
reactions.
working on right now with Carl that I can't speak of. That this I'm already very proud of.
Top secret
Yeah,
project.
that's the
Top
other thing as well.
secret.
There's always those going on.
It's-
You always
Yeah.
have to be. We always
It's
get
quite
get
promising.
briefed before we do these, and we have to be careful. And so I think that's a nice point to end. So yeah, I want to say thanks for joining us, and hopefully you've enjoyed it and you've engaged. We may not have got through to your questions, so apologies about that. We're going to be doing more of these, obviously, in the current environment and in the future. But also, if you want to connect with any of us on LinkedIn, if you've got a particular desire to join CA, then you can check our recruitment pages. You can email jobs@creative-assembly.com. You can get on LinkedIn. You can do all of these sorts of things, and we'll certainly try and come back to you as much as possible. Also, keep an eye on all of our social media channels. We post all of the opportunities and news and updates, and you can keep an eye out about when we're doing new Q&As and everything else to that. So thanks everyone, and yeah, I guess goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks, Carl and Chloe.